what are the principles followed by Cortillia in governance? See, today these principles might feel so that, okay, this is very normal, right? We expect king to perform their duty. We expect people to be happy. We expect people to be truthful, honest, non-violent, seek forgiveness, give forgiveness. However, go to the time when Kautilya had written Arthashastra, right? So it was around 5th century BCE, right? That time these thoughts were far ahead of their time, far ahead of their time. So that is why it is very important that the present principle that we follow in governance, we need to appreciate that so early these principles were propagated by Kautilya. Okay, so what are the governance principles for the king? There were fixed salaries. Okay, for king, there were fixed salaries and officials, fixed salaries of the kings and official. He defined the duties of the king, defined the duties of king. There was code of conduct for ministers, code of conduct for ministers. There was right to recall. You know what is the right to recall? Do we have right to recall today? Suppose a minister is not performing a duty. Suppose a minister is not performing a duty. Can we recall the minister? As of now, no. So at that time, there was a right to recall. Right to recall matlab to actually tell the person that you are not performing your duty and you do not have the power to hold this position anymore. So, discarding the people, discarding the leader from that position. Okay, so this is still not there at the central or the state level. But at the time of Cortillia, there was right to recall for the ministers, for the ministers, not for the king, not for the king, for the ministers and state officials. So a person cannot call a king, cannot recall the king, but can recall any state official. Okay. Then for the other, this was for the king and the officials. This was for the king and the officials. The other, like the PSUs or the state departments, do we have performance based income? Do we have performance based payment in PSUs or in government jobs? If you perform well, you will be given more money. If you perform less, you will be given less money. We still don't have it, right? We have fixed salaries. However, as per Cortillia, the state departments, right, there were penalties. There were penalties on the state departments if they incur losses, and rewards were bestowed in case of profit. In case of profit, there was a reward that was bestowed, but in case of losses, there were penalties as well. There was wage policy for state officials. You might have heard, seen your syllabus. In your syllabus, there is one topic, that is quality of service delivery. Have you seen this topic in the syllabus? Quality of service delivery. We have a Sevottam model. Okay, there is a Sevottam model which we need to follow if we want to ensure quality of service delivery. See, Cortillia mentioned during that time. What did Cortillia mention? That there should be standardization, quality of service delivery, which we study today. The quality of service. Corruption. What did Cortillia mention about corruption? What is corruption, anybody? Corruption refers to abuse of the position for personal gains. The abuse of the public position for personal gains. It also includes denial of justice, inaction, etc. Okay, so inaction, denial of justice, use of public position for personal gains is your corruption. So Cortillia provided heavy fine. Cortillia provided heavy fines and strict punishment. Okay. Cortillia identified first, he identified the 40 forms of corruption. There are 40 forms of corruption and provided strict punishment. It provided strict punishment for the officials. For the official, there was fine for adulteration. There was fine for adulteration. There was fine for garnering more profit. There was fine for garnering more profit. Then what did Cortillia mention? What did Cortillia mention about the justice system? How should the justice system be maintained? So Cortillia divided criminal matters, or should I say that Cortillia separated the criminal matters from the civil justice. Today also we have different type of justice. We have a criminal court, we have a civil court. So that time also Cortillia was wise enough to separate civil justice from the criminal justice, and said that justice system should be based on evidences. Okay, no prejudices. It should be based on evidences. It should be based on witnesses. It should be based on procedures. Okay, and it should have proportionate punishment for an offense. Cortillia created rule of law. How many of you know understand the term rule of law? Do you understand the term rule of law? Be you ever so high, the law is always above you. Nobody is above the law. So rule of law, nobody is above the law, right? Have anybody of you seen the movie Jai Bhim? I would request you to watch this movie, right? When I say this, you watch this movie, it's because you see how many people still, or how the PVTG tribes in India are invisible. They are facing atrocities by the protectors of the law. So the protector of the law himself has become the destructor of the law. So this is the movie, and when you see this movie, and this was based on the real incident 50 years after independence. Okay, 50 years after independence, then you would rather appreciate what does rule of law mean, and yes, what does rule of law mean, and how important is rule of law. Okay, if and why do I say they are invisible? Government knows me today, right? The government knows me by how does the government know me today? Because probably I have a ration card, probably I have a driving license, i have my PAN card. So I have this address proof, right? So a government knows me. Yes, so and so person exists. For example, if I have none of these, if I don't have a ration card, if I don't have a driving license, will the government acknowledge that there is a person by the name Dimple Nankani? Or for that matter, if you don't have, there is a person by Prem, there's a person by Samistha, right? The government will never acknowledge. So tomorrow, understand, if a mishappening happens with me, okay, I cannot go and say that I exist. Firstly, I'll have to prove my existence. Okay? So many tribes, they are invisible. They are not present in government records. So they don't exist. So when someone don't exist, you can treat them the way you want to treat them, right? So where it is very important to understand these terms. Rule of law is not simply a term. It is basically a meaning in itself, and it does have lot of implications. All of you clear?